Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on what time you're watching this. I am Garrett J. Lawrence. I'm your lovable host, and welcome to episode 4 of People Watching. Another episode in the books. We are really trucking along. I'm really glad you're back here again, or if you're a new listener, welcome. The last two episodes, we kind of covered the giant kind of illusion that is the right and the left and how it really just reinforces identity politics, tribalism, and a bunch of infighting. We saw that a lot last week, or at least within the last 2 weeks, during the No Kings protests. And honestly, it really kind of pushed me away from the identity politics and wanting to talk about that stuff, and really wanting to hone in on the much larger, much more important issues like a rising national debt, a military industrial complex gravy train, and a bunch of you know our democratically elected officials not being held accountable, and obviously the huge problem that is the continued guarding of and preventing the release of the Epstein files. So before we get super deep in on everything, I want to talk about kind of walking away from investing in everyday identity politics. Though there are some social movements that we should be involved in as Americans, we do not need to get caught up in the left versus the right, and we don't need to get caught up in the No Kings stuff. That was really silly. There was a lot of arguing going on, a lot of infighting. I even got involved. I really got sucked into it last week on social media. I really just, you know, I really was, I kind of was referring to people in at the protests. Excuse me. I was referring to people at the protests as I think it was stinky, sweat. It was sweaty, unemployed, and communist. Um, that was probably not nice of me to say, though fairly accurate. Um, I should turn the other cheek and I should just say I think what you're doing is silly. And I don't think what you're talking about. I don't think you know what you're talking about. I think I should have just stuck with that, because it is really ironic that you have supposedly hundreds of thousands of people who willingly chose to do these things on their own accord, and none of them were paid to do so. Uh, at all. It's not like Nick Shirley, an independent journalist, has uncovered that you have had people that have been paid to attend these rallies. Um, that's not at all a possibility at all. There's no proof of that. But I just thought it was really silly that people going to these protests were protesting a tyrannical government and a monarchy supposedly that the Trump administration has, and I think that's really ironic because you're out openly criticizing them. If this was a real authoritarian government, you would not be able to do that. I am personally a big critic right now of the Trump administration, but that is for lots of different reasons, and it is not really the tyrannical accusations. I don't think they fall into that category yet. I think they could at some point, uh, but again, I don't think it would be the type of tyranny that you're trying to protest. I really encourage you to go to the UK and protest the tyranny they're experiencing over there. They are being crushed by censorship laws, mass immigration, total cultural importation, and the eradication of, you know, the British and even Scottish kind of heritage. But because there was so much infighting, it really pushed me back to focusing on the fact that it's all kind of an illusion. We're all fighting over utterly pointless stuff at the end of the day when it comes to most identity politics, and it just keeps us divided. I'm going to respect your right to protest. However, I also have a right to criticize you and be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Um, on top of that, though, um, we need to focus as Americans on the much bigger issues. And that might include, like I stated earlier, the giant military industrial complex that just keeps chugging along. There are people making millions of dollars off of that. That, and then the fact that we have an incredibly humongous debt that just rises every day. We need to prioritize those things. We also need to kick out politicians who openly will criticize Trump as being a king, but have had longer political careers than any king in any other form of history or in any other culture. Think of Nancy Pelosi. She's been in the political world for what is it, 47 years or is it 57 years? I don't know. She's like 132 now. So it's been a while that she's been in politics. And I'm pretty sure if you blew too hard on her, she would collapse into a pile of dust. Either that or you try throwing a bucket of water on her, I think something would happen. But anyway, she comes out and she has this little promo video and she's like, no kings, and she snaps a crown. The crown, I think, actually belonged to her. It was just one of many that she had. So she was fine with breaking it because she knew her servant would go and retrieve another for her. But obviously, as a multi millionaire woman, she just wanted to encourage the fact that Trump is a tyrant, even though he's only been in politics for almost 12 years now. Even though he is also a millionaire, but she just wanted to remind you that though she's been in office for 57 or 47 years, maybe it's 37. Either way, it's more than 35. I think that's kind of problematic, especially when every year you've increased your net worth by millions. But she just wanted to remind the general public that Donald Trump is an evil king. And she is absolutely in no way, though spending 57 or 37 or 47 years, I got to really find that out. She is in no way a queen or a monarch of any form at all. She is one of us. Remember that? No. If you fell for that, and there are people who fall for that every day, there are people who are cheering her on. Yes, Nancy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Speaker. Thank you so much for snapping that crown and showing that you stand with us. She makes millions of dollars every year off of you. Off of you. And she's blocked appointments of different officials and plenty of other things. I don't need to go in on Nancy Pelosi. We all kind of know that she's secretly an eternal being coming to suck the souls out of everybody around her. Either that or rob you. But yeah, so I just would recommend that we start to look into the more important things, and that's the fact that we're all Americans, and the elites are against us, and we're against them. But here's the thing: here's the kind of like overhand we have, or upper hand we have, is that we employ them. We are their employers. They are our employees. They work for us, not for them, not us for them. The government is here to serve you, not us serve them. But we have a giant military industrial complex that is constantly sucking the money out of all of our pockets in order to fund endless wars. Now, I think it's really ironic that the Trump administration comes out and is like, we're going to stop forever wars, when like the forever war is Israel versus Palestine. Like that is the forever war. Okay. We had Bush in 2003 come out. He had a banner that said mission accomplished and said the Iraq war was over and we're achieving peace. Yeah. Then we went to war with them for like another 20 years. So anyway, and that was just Iraq. You know what I mean? Like, this is Israel versus Palestine. This is a war that is like 2,000, 3,000 or more years old, 4,000 years old. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying that the Israeli government is fighting that war specifically or continuing that war, because I don't think the Israeli government represents the actual Israeli and ethnically Jewish people. I think there are people in Israel who might agree with that. I think there's a lot of people who might disagree with me on that. But I think us sending, lots and lots of weapons over there just to kind of decimate, you know what I mean, an entire area that takes 45 minutes to fly over. They're just obliterating this place. And, the UN has come out and said that it's going to take decades, or at least a decade to rebuild everything, right? So I know they built a little operations center for U.S. officials and other foreign officials. They propped that up in a couple of days after this peace deal went through. But even at that, I think it was on the 19th, Israel killed 44 Palestinians. in kind of a little inner city flare up. But for the most part, the peace deal's kind of held up, even though if that happens immediately after a peace deal, I don't see that as it holding up well. We also have had Hamas get active recently. We just have had a little bit of flare ups, but it's still a continuation of what's going on. You also had people returning from the kind of, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting which bank, but you had people starting. You had Palestinian civilians start to move back into Gaza, and then you had all these attacks start happening all over again. That's not very cool. And I think as Americans, if we have a government that's going to be involved in a endless conflict, one of which is going to get chalked up in probably the next couple of years as, regardless, one of the worst war crimes ever. I think Hamas is guilty of a lot of horrible things. Duh, but there are innocent people that apparently there was a terrorist in every single building in Gaza. Apparently, I'm not I'm not like some far leftist liberal guy or anything. I've always, well, I wouldn't say always, but I've, for the most part, as a Christian, stood with Israel. And I still will still stand with the Israeli people, not the government. So when you tell me I need to stand with Israel, I need you to clarify, who is that? Is that the government? Is it the nation? Is it the people? Because if it's the government, I will not. Because apparently there's been a terrorist in everybody's house. And that's why all of Gaza is a pile of rubble and babies are dead. I can't support that. If you're a Christian, you can't support that. And that's just one of kind of a billion reasons why you shouldn't support this war. That's rule number one. It's like you're supporting the death of innocent people on one side. Like, and obviously the other side too. Like, by promoting and standing with this government and wanting to be like, oh, I'm okay with sending them weapons, you know what I mean, to go obliterate all these people, it's only going to activate that opposition even more and then harm people, just innocent Israeli people too. It's again a forever war. But on top of that, as a US citizen, you should not be in support of the government coming and just taking your money to go get involved in a war overseas. While we have people buying literal groceries with their credit cards, dude. You have people who can't buy a car because the used car market is obliterated. Like like you have billionaires who literally, you have the people making these decisions to go to war don't know how much a carton of milk is. And you're totally fine. You're totally fine with them calling the shots on what wars we get involved in. Oh my gosh. It's literally just to make money, okay? That's how our government sees it, okay? That's how the Israeli government might see it. They're okay with having their own people die and also killing a bunch of other people. They're okay with doing that if that's the price for a nice beefy paycheck and continuous authoritarian rule over that region. They'll take it. They will take it. I feel like Dave Smith right now with this sweater and my posture. I feel like I should be arguing with Douglas Murray right now. Again, there are some people who are going to argue against me and say, what I'm saying is utter BS and try to come up with some, facts to disprove me and, give me fake statistics. And also, they're going to try and argue with me that, oh, well, the death of 2,000 people warrants the death of, possibly, 200,000. Like, that doesn't make sense. Okay. It doesn't make sense. That's not logical. That's not reasonable. Again, I feel like Christians in America have been taken advantage of because you have, the US government partnering with Israel, the Israeli government, and turning themselves into this conglomerate warmongering machine and parading around with like, we're God's chosen people. Listen, the people making the decisions on whether or not they're going to go to war or whether or not they're going to blow up that 12-story apartment building and give everybody a 5-minute notice. And apparently there's 20 terrorists on every floor and in every bedroom, right? The people making those decisions, they're using you, okay? They are using that narrative in order to garner your support. So then you can actively deny what is generally what most would consider in any other place on the planet a genocide. I hope I drove that point home, and I hope you think pretty hardly about your support for these things. I think we need to be supporters and peacemakers and problem solvers. The only way we do that is if we support innocent people, okay? If you are really out there for justice, you need to support the innocent people, the innocent babies, the babies and children on either side of this war. And if you think for 1 second, how can we protect these two groups of people? You're going to quickly realize that we need to end the war and we need to stop sending weapons over there. Because that's just the plan. The plan is just to keep having endless wars and to keep fighting people and killing people, all to make money and take control of the Middle East. I'm done with that. Anyway, by the way, Israel controls half of Gaza now, after all that. Here's a quote from Tariq Kenishawa. He's a U.S. policy fellow at Al-Shabaka. And he warns that Israel knew that those technicalities existed. The technicalities being having to bring sustained humanitarian access into Gaza after a giant war, and that they're going to have a bunch of tough tasks. And what they're doing now is that they're exploiting it in order to continue a genocide. Oops. Albeit at a slightly reduced rate of killing. What Israel is trying to do is actually very strategic in the long term. This is a U.S. policy fellow, by the way. In the long term, they've signed this agreement that's going to get their hostages back, but that will allow them to resume their strategic objectives of rendering Gaza uninhabitable and eventually leading to a mass exodus. Wow, it's almost like we started to see that unfold in these past couple of days in a way that is palatable by the international community. And then Rami Abdou, chair of the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor, states, the matter is not a ceasefire. We are talking about a managed genocide, a managed forcible displacement. And then NPR went on to report that the babysitters like Witkoff and Kushner met Hamas in Egypt to enforce details amid accusations of withheld hostage bodies. Also true. There's obviously people on Twitter that have urged for peace. Me personally, I would like none of this to be true. I would like to be totally disproven that there has not been some sort of attempt to create this idea of a greater Israel, or at least expand the Israeli government in a more profitable position in the Middle East when it comes to military strategy. I think that's the word I'm looking for. But it's hard to kind of deny any sort of mass attempt at displacing a bunch of people, which Ben Shapiro said he was okay with back in 2013 or 2012 in an article he wrote where he said it was okay to, it was a ethnic displacement or what was the word? I'm forgetting what the word was, but anyway. So remember, your talking heads are saying this is okay, and it's literally they're talking about displacing and removing a bunch of people from an area that they're just trying to live in. And I get there's a lot of history between the conflict, but I'm here, again, advocating for the innocent people. You got to figure out a situation for the innocent people. You can't keep dropping bombs on apartment buildings with innocent people in them and saying it's because Shareem down here on floor 3 is he's using a hostage, right? So we're going to bomb the whole building. We're going to bomb the whole building because Shareem is on the 3rd floor with, a grown man under his arm. We're going to bomb the whole building. We're going to kill 60 people to knock out this one guy. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Anyway, good news is we have aid groups moving in. They're stepping up. There is a bright spot amid the grimness to support these people. Also, if we can garner this peace deal and it actually go through and it actually works and we actually back off, we could actually see... we could actually save some U.S. dollars. But empathy for these civilians on all sides. Again, I'm stressing all sides. You got to work with me here. This whole, super tribalism. We got to stop. We got to realize you got innocent kids and children on all sides. And I think a lot of young people, thank God, young people are starting to wake up and see that we've got this giant boomer establishment that is okay with wiping people off the face of the earth, people that have been spoon fed propaganda about wars overseas. Young people are waking up. Young Christians are waking up and being like, hey, we got to stop. We got to stop letting this happen. We cannot do this. As a country, we will not survive. We will all start trying to kill each other if we can't agree on the fact that this needs to stop. We need to stop funding endless wars and killing people overseas. We need to stop doing that. Anyway, but there's good news. There's good news. And it's that we've got aid moving in. We've built an operations center. JD Vance went over there and said it's going good. I'd like to disagree with him, but I'm going to trust him on that. But he's not that trustful of a guy because of who funded his career. But we don't need to talk about that. Anyway, oh gosh. We also have the Ukraine push. From battlefield to bargaining table at this point. So Trump is kind of leveraging the Gaza peace deal to also push for peace in Ukraine, now nearing 4 years of a war. I've got some notes here. There's a planned Budapest meeting with Putin, and it's on hold after Russia rejected a ceasefire at current lines with no immediate summit planned. And by the way, I have citations on all of this. I plan on leaving them in the description. In an October 21st call, so yesterday, Trump posted, I believe, where was this on? Trump posted on, okay, I don't have what it's on, but I have the citation. I'll find it. President Putin and I will then meet to see if we can bring this inglorious war to an end. I believe great progress was made. But today's reports obviously confirm stalling, given that Putin rejected this deal to meet. Excuse me. October 17th talks with Zelensky included Tomahawk missiles as leverage. Look, if this war is not going to get settled, I'm going to send them Tomahawks. That's Russia's Dmitry Peskov. He also continues, certainly we welcome such intentions. We hope that the influence of the United States will certainly help prompt the Ukrainian side toward a greater readiness for a peace process. Lavrov today reiterated demands for Ukraine's disarmament and territorial concessions, calling Trump's freeze proposal unacceptable. So they're basically just wanting to, they don't want to disarm themselves. That's the gist, and that's why this peace deal isn't going through. Obviously, I'm not an expert on the Ukraine war, but again, it's another money pit. Now, I kind of want to tie that all together. So these wars obviously fuel debt. We're on day 22 of a giant government shutdown, and it's kind of starting to expose the cracks. We've got missing paychecks, and we've got services that are getting halted. Meanwhile, peace in Gaza and Ukraine could save us billions. But in the midst of all that, we got to make sure we have empathy for the civilians on either side. We also got to have empathy for the workers who are getting furloughed and they're getting put out of work during this shutdown. I know we want to blame Republicans and we want to blame Democrats. We want to go back and forth. But I do encourage us as Americans, there are innocent people that had no choice in this shutdown and they're out of work. Again, I had some friends who experienced that many years ago in the 2018 to 2019 shutdown. One that lasted 31 days. We're on day 22, so there's an entirely probable, option for us to exceed that 31-day halt. But we're yet to see that. And then reforms-wise, we have tariffs, spending cuts that the Trump admin's been pushing for all year. They're definitely needed. I think we do have some diplomatic wins. Again, kind of like what's going on in Gaza peace, that kind of shows that we're kind of moving towards more of an America First approach. However, again, the more we fund these wars, the more we fund these foreign conflicts, the less America First we are. But again, this peace deal needs to really get some actual action here. Moral of the story: you guys got to stay engaged. You got to contact your representatives on the shutdown. You got to support peace initiatives. You need to prioritize your facts. Prioritize America at the end of the day, especially as deadlines loom for pay for people that live here and then for aid. Um, but again, I've got some more tables here. Yeah, I've got this humongous list of citations. Excuse me. But this was a sort of a much shorter episode. Again, I encourage you guys to really think about these wars overseas. And you need to rationalize with that the fact that just because we might have an alliance with that country does not mean we get to absolutely pummel the innocent people on the opposing side. There's absolutely no justice in that. There's no truth in that. There's nothing morally right about that. And I believe as a Christian, I got to stand up for what is right. And that's that there are innocent people dying over there. Innocent people that could, you know, could be ministered to. But of course, we got to fund a war. We got to pummel them onto the ground. We got to level their cities. We got to level their apartment complexes. We got to displace everybody. And I don't want to be a doomer because there's hope, but we really got to wake up. We are at a big turning point in America, a big turning point, and we really got to lock in on how we, as the kind of next generation of politicians and lawyers and diplomats and business owners and talking heads and just everyday people, we really got have to focus on a stop funding wars. It's going to save us some money once we do that. And also, there's kind of a moral benefit to that. Innocent people aren't dying anymore. And we got to keep talking about making and reforming America into a problem solving, peacemaking country, not a country that is super involved in foreign conflicts and foreign wars. And we got to stop with the identity politics. If people want to protest that Trump is a king, sure, absolutely, go for it. I think it's silly. I think you're wrong, but again, we're both entitled to that. But I also do want to encourage people protesting things that you might not know everything about. I think you should research things. I think you should think long and hard about your feelings because I think you're allowed to have feelings. You're allowed to feel a certain way about the Trump administration, but those feelings aren't always valid. Does that make sense? It's like you can have those feelings. That doesn't mean they're the right feelings. I guess it's valid to have the feelings, but that doesn't mean they're correct. Doesn't mean they're based on truth. Doesn't mean they're based on justice. Doesn't mean they're accurate. And I think if you have those feelings, you should be open-minded and you should listen to what other people have to say and you should listen to the other opinions of people and also the correct perspectives and the correct ideas. You should be willing to explore them. Like I'm not again, and then also like back to the Israel Palestine thing. Just because I'm anti-war in Gaza does not mean I'm pro-Palestine. They got things they got to work out too. We need to eliminate Hamas from the equation. And I really don't like that people will try to blame Palestine for having Hamas run the show. Hamas ran around with hatchets and machine guns going to your door saying, hey, you have to vote for us. You know what I mean? Like people that think they democratically voted these people in and that there wasn't any sort of coercion, you're out of your mind. You're dealing with a terrorist group. If I didn't vote for these guys in, or if I didn't stay silent, they might have killed my kids or taken my food away. Like I gotta live, I gotta eat, I gotta feed my family. They didn't have a choice. And it's not right to blame the innocent people over there on the situation that they're currently in. As a peacemaking country, the one way we can get involved is verbal advocate for stuff like that. Anyway, don't mean to get into all that. I hope what I said made somewhat sense. I'm going to continue exploring these ideas. I would like to read more on what's going on. Um, and I would like to continue to get educated on the Israel Palestine debate. I don't think I'm the best. I think I might speak a lot of vibes. But again, these vibes are morally correct. I think it's bad they're killing people. I don't know who can argue with that. And I hope you agree with me on that. But yeah, that's really all I got. Uh, Tune back in. We're probably going to be doing more episodes here soon. I'm hoping we do a little bit longer form in the future. But yeah, this is kind of what I got. Um, Thanks for tuning in. This has been People Watching. See you next time.